Hello everyone, I am Ashley of Disfusional Studios, and we are 1 week away from the launch of Warframe's biggest update since the Plains of Eidolon, the Duviri Paradox. I am excited to share that Digital Extremes has humbly partnered with me to share my creative take on the Duviri Paradox Mask. They provided me with a life-size 3D printed Duviri Mask to decorate, and I decided to dip back into my traditional art roots. So let's talk about design plans. I wanted to reference design elements from the game that would also complement my own artistic style. Raku ware is a famous type of Japanese pottery for tea ceremonies. With various pottery elements in-game, I knew that this would be a wonderful idea to build from. After some light sketching, I started with the stand. Using Warframe's original trailer depicting our beloved warrior statues, I would take a more organic approach to the stand. I selected an air-dry foam clay to sculpt my stones with. Water helped with rolling up large balls of clay and flattening them into ovals. Each stone was pressed onto the stand and air bubbles were removed. This turned out to be a messier process than I had originally thought. However, the clay was super light once dry and would give me a surface that I could finish in a multitude of ways. This toothpaste-looking tube is actually quick seal, an adhesive caulk. With a stiff, bristled brush, I squeezed some caulk onto a scrap piece of paper. Using a stippling technique, I dabbed quick seal onto the entire surface of my stand. As the caulk dried in areas, I was able to layer and build up my textures. What was once smooth now has an organic texture to paint upon. While my stand dries, it was time to shift my focus over to the mask. The super smooth mask made the application of black acrylic easy. With a flat, round brush, I made quick work of the base coat. I set the mask aside just as the stand had dried and continued to base coat everything. After the initial mask layer had dried, it was time to start working on my naked Raku. Instead of working with a resist slip, I would be using a crackling medium, helping me spiral into a grayscale aesthetic resembling Dominus Thrax's moods. A timer was set, and in exactly 1 hour it was time to create the ceramic-inspired technique in a very non-ceramic fashion. White acrylic paint is applied hastily with a variety of different brushstrokes in different directions. You can start to see the cracks forming in no time right before your eyes. While my naked Raku effect was drying, I turned back to the stand. I started with a dark gray, mixing black and white together. I would go back over the entire stand with this hue, creating depth as a layering game. A second layer of medium gray was stippled just onto the stone's surface before setting again off to the side to dry. Picking up a clean brush, I used more black paint to assist with gradation, feathering out my bold white paint lines. I would need to finish and seal my naked Raku inspired side with a matte clear coat before moving on to the opposing side. After brushing on light gray, you can really start to see my idea on the stones take shape. I mixed a color resembling beach sand for the tops of my stones next. This layer gave varying degrees of highlights to their small stone surfaces. I chose to dry brush white across the entire stand, catching the tops of all my created textures. I had to pull out my Dormazone tea steeper to get the morning started. Early morning oil painting shadows using a mixture of brown and black oil paint. I went back into the voids and cracks, pushing my shadows to only greater pop my highlights. After things started to dry, it still looked too clean to be inspired by our forgotten warriors. I used a towel in more brown oil paint to rub over the stand's surface. This would give the stand a more aged appearance before various greens, yellows, and browns were used to mimic growing moss. What would a piece of Warframe art be without the iconic use of gold accents? A metallic gold was used to rub and buff across the Duviri Paradox Lotus logo. With the gold accent complete, Stand Prime was finished. To create the visual appearance of dripping glaze, insert the haphazard use of a high-temp hot glue gun here. Making sure that the mask would drip according to its placement within the base, hot glue was used to create my three-dimensional glaze effect. More quickseal was used to smooth out my glue sculpture, and water was used to help even out the caulk prior to wet sanding. I sealed in both glue and caulk with a couple layers of wood glue, another medium that would allow for wet sanding once it was dried. I needed a super smooth surface once again. After a quick trip to the paint store, I believe I found the perfect villain blue for the side of my mask that would harness the colorful mood for my dripping metallic glaze. I was influenced by the copper matte Raku and the low-firing iridescent pottery techniques, only this time I would not have to worry about the exposure to oxygen as I would be painting on the desired effects myself. Watering down my paints for a more pliable application that would also be transparent enough to show layers below. I continued to paint layers of blue and brighter hues symbolizing different iridescent copper oxidized areas. Of all the techniques I used for my artistic take of Warframe's Duviri Paradox Mask, this stage took the longest, blending and mixing colors until I was happy. In the Duviri Paradox, you play as an outlaw known as the Drifter in a new open world-based expansion to Warframe, in the fight to break free from Duviri's endless day cycle of death and rebirth. Complete a new cinematic quest and meet intriguing characters both new and old as you wrest control of Duviri from the clutches of the tyrant Dominus Thrax. And again, thank you to Digital Extremes and Warframe for partnering with me on this fun project. For more information, please check out the links in the video description below. I cannot wait to join my fellow Tenno Wednesday, April 26th, for the launch of Warframe's The Duviri Paradox.
He keeps trying to leave! What's out there that's so fascinating? Maybe I should just go there.